Welcome back to another video. My name is Derek and today we're going to be taking a look at two different products. The first one we're going to be taking a look at is this Rework station. This is the Quick 2008. It's the cheapest Rework station that MobileSentrix sells. So we're going to put it through a test today to see what it can handle. And the second one is this little guy right here. It might seem small, but it's a game changer for some repairs. Using these two tools, we're going to see if we can do an HDMI on an Xbox. The reason I picked an HDMI repair on this Xbox board is because the thermal mass that this board has requires a lot of heat. And so if a small cheap unit like this can do this, then it can basically do any other repair. So let's get started. First, let's take a look at this. This is the SC96 gold-plated FPC Reballing solder ball. It's simply inserted like this, and we will be able to use this in place of, say, a large capacitor to help us spread solder even across the pads for, say, an FPC connector, or in this case, an HDMI connector. The Quick Station has a fairly long cable for the handheld heat gun. Comes with 4 different reduction nozzles and a tool to help install them. And depending on if you want to store it on the right side or the left side, it has that ability. The only 2 other things that I'm going to need for this is some flux and some solder paste. I'm going to be using a 183 solder paste for this, but for the pins themselves, you could go down to a 138. Something to note is if you are installing this on the left side, you will need to change the orientation of this so that the machine can sense when you're storing the gun. Just like that. Now I can spin this around and have this facing down. Because as you can see now, if I take it on and off, it turns on, and when I put it back, it turns off. Because of the way where the sensors are, you could store it like this with it facing down, or you could flip it around. You can change the percentage of airflow of this dial here and the temperature very quickly and very accurately with these buttons on the side. And 500 is the max temperature, and it's got 3 channels as well if you want to set preheats for, like, say 350, 450, 500. You can set those up so that at the quick click of a button you can get there instead of having to adjust the temperature each time. To set up the channels, all you simply do is you adjust the percentage. Say I want to have something like a 75% airflow with, say, 425, and then if I hold down channel 2, for example, will beep. And now if I go to channel 2, it's got my 425 at 75. I set channel 1 to 350 at 50. And channel 3 is at 400. So I'm going to change that. We'll go all the way up to 500 and leave it at 100. So I'm going to hold down channel 3 on that. And now channel 3 is set to max and max, which we will be using this. And we'll be using channel 3 and channel 1 in this repair. All right, so we're going to be just using the nozzle as it is without the reducing nozzle to remove it. We want the largest area to be heated up, so I'm going to come in from below and we're going to heat up the board till the solder on top melts thoroughly and we'll be able to pop it off. Alright, so I'm going to go to channel 3. Alright, we're up to temperature. So I'm just going to put this over, we'll heat it up. Alright, and so I'm going to take the tweezers and I'm just going to jiggle it around, and as soon as I start to see a good amount of movement, I know that everything's hot enough that I can pull it off without damaging any of the pads. Now I'm going to come down with some flux. Alright, now we're going to add some solder paste right into that flux. You could add the flux afterwards, it doesn't really matter. And this is where this tip is going to come in handy. It works really well for the pads for the FPC connectors, but it also works really well for this. Using a soldering iron doesn't allow for even distribution, but this method definitely does. For this, we're going to use a reduction nozzle. This is the second smallest. We could go down to an even smaller one. What this allows me to do is deposit a plethora of solder on each one of the pads without it being excessive or uneven, just like that. Now we'll get out our HDMI port, and I'm going to add flux to the legs and pins. There's these 4 legs and a bunch of contact points. Just make sure they all have plenty of flux on them to help the solder travel. Add a little bit of solder paste into each one of these holes for the legs. Not a lot, doesn't need much. And now we can take our tool here and easily remove the tip without burning our fingers. Now all we have to do is reverse it, take the temperature out from below, and we can install this. And this whole process we're doing without a soldering iron. I'm going to preheat it while it beeps at me, telling me it's not at temperature yet. We'll put down the HDMI port, and we'll push it on down. Keep heating it. Let the solder travel up the legs. Make sure it's nice and squared. Hold it down and let off the heat. And this HDMI port is done. I can check all the pins if I really want to. I can see that they're all making solid contact. This tool right here, super nice to have handy. I don't have to worry about the soldering iron at all. And this station performed well. And there we have it. A quick look at the Quick 2008 and the gold-plated FPC reballing solder bars. If you're in the market for looking for something that's cheap but can get the job done, this station will definitely work for you. It had sufficient temperature control and air output to be able to do something as heat consuming as an HDMI repair. Of course, for some of the more complicated repairs like a CPU or a NAND, maybe this isn't the right one to start with because you want it to be even more refined, but this one definitely got the job done. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks a ton for watching. We'll see you in the next video.